with us on the program. We're happy that you've decided to stick around. All right, this morning, joining us from the Society Against Sexual Orientation Discrimination, SASOD. Did I get it right?
You got it right.
Society Against Sexual Orientation Discrimination, SASOD. Co-founder, co-chair Joel Simpson. Joel, thanks so much for being a part of the program this morning. It's
Thank
a
you for
pleasure
having
having you here. And we always like when you guys stop by. What's happening at SASOD?
Well, we just launched a new campaign called the SASOD Cine Campaign on Friday, last Friday, May 16th, ahead of International Day Against Homophobia and Transphobia, which is celebrated on May 17th.
May 17th. That was Saturday.
Oh, yes, the
And
day was Saturday. We
the
launched a
launch was
campaign
on
on Friday at Murray House in Georgetown. So basically, this new campaign is about getting short films that we've produced, short documentary films actually, on national television and YouTube online, so that people can see particularly issues affecting lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender Guyanese in terms of violence and discrimination. So the key focus and the key themes revolve around those issues, particularly transphobic violence, which is an area we've been seeing an increase or upshoot in over the last several months, perhaps.
So transphobic violence is basically self-explanatory.
Well,
Persons.
well, not for everybody. So homophobia is this umbrella term that is used to refer to the hatred, prejudice that people have against homosexuals, lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender people. Transphobia is a specific term referring to that hatred and prejudice against transgender people in particular. Transgender people meaning persons who are born with a particular sex and their gender, how they feel, their psychological gender, how they feel, doesn't match necessarily for them, and they express that kind of transgender identity through their dress, through their deportment, sometimes through body modifications, by having surgeries, by taking hormones and that sort of thing. So to put it simply, you might be born a man with male sex organs, but psychologically inside you feel female and you want to express that, or vice versa. You're born a woman with female sex organs and psychologically, your psychological gender feels male and you want to live true to that psychological experience.
Why is it that society deems that as not keeping up to this standards?
It's transgressive. It's a minority issue as well. So most people are what we call cisgender, which like me and you, our sex matches our gender, and that's the norm. But for a minority of people, that's not the case, and generally, societies often struggle with difference in various forms, and we've seen that over history. Sometimes it's racial and ethnic differences, differences related to religion, and so on. But one of the areas that we see that kind of struggle as well is in relation to sexual and gender diversity.
So we're getting back to the Cine campaign. Basically, it's to educate person, as you mentioned earlier, about the atrocities that are meted out to persons of this sexual orientation. How impactful do you think by taking these films to television can be? And what has been the responses so far from television owners, station managers, of airing these on their television stations?
Well, so far so good. The films will actually air in June, be on stations in June, so we're organizing that. So far the feedback has been good.
What's on the stations so far?
I don't deal with those details
Okay.
specifically, so I won't want to say, but it'll be all over the press. I know Channel 9 is definitely one of them. So you'll see lots of announcements in the newspapers, online there'll be ads when they are scheduled, radio announcements as well. We'll be doing a lot of media appearances to promote that and so on. So far the reception are good. The films are of good quality, and they're really about people speaking about their experiences. So if we can't even listen to people, then something is very, very wrong with us as a society. I don't consider it controversial at all to just listen to people talk about their experiences with violence and discrimination.
But some people might want to say, hey, you're bringing this homosexual thing to our face. You're pushing us now to accept your lifestyle.
Well, One, I don't think it's a lifestyle because nobody describes heterosexuality as a lifestyle. It's the way people are. It's the way we are. It's the way
But then there's that
we are.
argument.
And I think acceptance is the goal because we want people to recognize that difference and diversity should be celebrated. And because somebody might be of a different religion or ethnicity or sexual orientation or gender identity, and not necessarily because that's a minority one, you reject them for that difference. We want people to accept and appreciate sexual and gender diversity because we think it's what makes a rich tapestry of humanity when we all have differences which we could appreciate and celebrate.
Can people accept what it is that is being done without giving approval to it?
I think so. People are entitled to their moral positions on issues, and I think those moral positions apply to how you govern your own life. But where it becomes problematic is when you feel that your own moral compass should be extended and it should govern how other people operate, and when you want to impose that. So for instance, if you don't believe in homosexuality and so on, then don't do it. But don't tell somebody else that they can't. So that's where we have to draw the line where it comes to private morality and public morality issues.
Or we've seen some pictures, those pictures, what are they about?
So part of the campaign is interactions on social media, and we started off ahead of the launch last week with what we call this selfie expression campaign on Facebook, and these are just some samples from our Facebook page of photos that people have sent in from all walks of life, Guyanese from home and abroad. You're seeing pictures now from JFK, Delta Airlines, Guyanese working there, a Brazilian lesbian woman with Guyanese linkages, people who support equal rights for homosexuals, for lesbian, gay, bisexual,
and
transgender
not only people
people.
who are homosexual.
Not at all. Not at all. Most of the people in the campaign, that's Minister Priya Manakchan. Yeah. So Guyanese from all walks of life, politicians, lawyers, ordinary people, and so on. And from my own observation, I think the majority of people who've actually sent in photos and statements of support and so on identify publicly as heterosexual.
This continues up until Independence Day?
This continues until May 26th, Independence Day. The response has been overwhelming, and now that it's hit the media, we're hearing people saying we're only now hearing about it, we'd love to participate. So we decided to extend it to mark independence as well, because we also think this is an issue about independence, freeing and emancipation. These laws which criminalize same-sex intimacy and cross-dressing are not our own. Our traditional cultures as indigenous people, as African people and Indian people, are not to exclude anybody. Those are things that the colonizers brought. And they've moved away from it, and we're still stuck on it. So we think it's also an important statement for independence as well, that Guyana should be freeing itself of these colonial, outdated, antiquated and backward laws which were imposed on us by the British. This was not our traditional culture.
But don't you think they help in the upkeep of the society?
Not at all. Okay. I think they help in the breakdown of society, because you have laws, you have police diverting attention when they feel like to cracking down on cross-dressers, when they could be focused on fighting crime. You have police who, when they should be focused on investigating crime, are paying attention to how same-sex practicing men might be operating in private spaces and so on, and taking bribes not to supposedly impose charges related to homosexuality, gross indecency, and so on. What we found is that we haven't seen a case since the late 1970s in Guyana for prosecution of private consensual behavior, but there's lots of threats that go on that never make it to the station or the newspapers and so on, because people pay the bribes because of the stigma and the shame. So when you have discriminatory laws in the books, they give rise to a whole heap of other things which you might not intend, and that's one of the reasons we think the laws are so problematic.
All right. Quickly, I want to touch on the video that was launched, the documentary more so, Selenas Voice. I want to zoom in a bit on that, because that's going to be the first that's going to be aired going back to the Cine Campaign.
Yeah.
That's the first going to be aired.
So the videos will start the first Monday in June. I don't remember that date right now, maybe June 3rd. Selenas Voice is about the experience of a Guyanese transgender woman named Selena. She went to a bar one time on the East Coast, dressed as a trans, and she rejected the advances of a man, the sexual advances of a man. And because she rejected those advances, he beat her up, stabbed her with a bottle. She almost lost her life. Some of the wounds barely missed her lungs. One of the gashes, I think, affected one of her salivary glands, so she has no taste and so on in one side of her mouth. Since then, Selena has been back and forth in and out of Guyana, more out than in, because she doesn't feel safe here. And at the launch on Friday, she announced that she's migrating to the Netherlands to live with her partner because she doesn't feel safe in Guyana. So then it becomes, so what we're seeing as well is that homophobia and transphobia have real economic costs. Because she's bright, she's intelligent. This is a young trans woman that's worked for international USAID projects on HIV and that sort of thing in Guyana. And we're losing our bright, experienced, and skilled people because of prejudice and discrimination. Before that incident happened, she had said she had no intention of ever leaving Guyana, but now she just doesn't feel safe as a trans woman here.
Joel, thanks so much for being a part of the program this morning.
Thank you for having me.
I think it is, to some extent, it can be considered okay to open up and talk about these issues because they form part of a society in which we live in. And if we continue to deny that these things exist within our very own society, I think then we've got a major problem.
Yeah, we must have dialogue. Dialogue is key.
By the way, in closing, is there anything else you want to mention before we go?
Well, yes. The day before Independence, Sunday, May 25th, SASOD will hold its annual International AIDS Candlelight Memorial that evening on the steps of the St. George's Cathedral. I'd like to encourage everybody listening to come out. On June 1st, I believe it's Sunday, June 1st, our 10th annual Lesbian, Gay and Bisexual Transgender Film Festival opens. Stay tuned to the press for details, and I'd love to come back on First Look. And people from SASOD would love to come on First Look and talk about those activities.
Okay. All right, Joel, thanks so much for being a part of the show.
Thank you for having me.
It was a pleasure having you here, and we look forward to having more of these conversations.
Great.
All right, so this morning we're talking with Joel Simpson from SASOD, the founder and co-chair there. Stay with us because we've got more still to tell you about on the show this morning.
Patients, they have too much side effects.